Afternoon to all the friends joining all from all over the world. I am Dr. Garima Kachhava, working as additional professor in Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, AIMS, New Delhi. And it is my pleasure to host this webinar being organized in AIMS by AIMS and WHO India in partnership with Women in Global Health India, titled COVID-19 vaccination in pregnant and postpartum women, leaving no one behind. Friends, as we all know that given the fact that we are still in the pandemic and COVID-19 infection continues to be a great cause of concern, especially for pregnant and lactating women, there is an increasing felt need to discuss the impact of COVID-19 vaccination and the protection imparted by vaccination against COVID-19 in this high-risk group. WHO recommends and emphasizes the need for vaccination drives for COVID-19 in this high-risk population of pregnant and lactating women. So today, to dive deeper into this critical topic of extreme relevance right now, we have brought together experts, high-level officials, and esteemed panelists to discuss and share their insights on the benefit of COVID-19 vaccination in pregnancy. Thus, to begin with the session, I am extremely pleased to invite Dr. Neerja Batla, Professor and Head of the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Director WHO CCR AIMS, New Delhi, to welcome the dignitaries, speakers, panelists, and everyone joining us today for this important discussion from all over the world. Over to you, Dr. Batla.
I have joined.
Welcome, Dr. Shanta. And welcome to everyone who is here with us today. Whether it is your morning, afternoon, or evening, it is my pleasure to welcome all our guests, all our dignitaries, and each one of our participants who is no less a dignitary at all today. And I have to thank Dr. Pushpa Chaudhary and Dr. Ram Chahar from WHO Country Office India and their team who have led from the front in making this webinar today a reality. It has also been blessed by WHO CRO, Dr. Nina Raina, Dr. Anoma, who have also brought in the member states. You know, it is a peculiar disease that we go through with COVID. There it waxes and wanes, and different countries are at different stages of this epidemic at different times. So while we might sit back and relax and think that we can rest, but there is at the same time friends in other countries, presently, for example, Bangladesh, going through a very difficult crisis, and we never know when it will be upon us again. And the very fact that we are able to discuss this topic today is a tribute to the efforts of all the different stakeholders you see here today. The efforts of WHO, who is, of course, an ultimate authority in terms of helping to bring everyone together to accept and approve vaccines, to give recommendations, but also efforts from FOGSI, which were very, very instrumental in supporting the work from the ministry of supporting the recommendations of NTAGI, when 30,000 members of FOGSI, under the leadership of then office bearers, Dr. Alpesh Gandhi, Dr. Jaideep Tang, and the successors, Dr. Shanta Kumari, Dr. Madhuri Patel, have completely been instrumental in allowing us to have a voice that mattered and brought it to reality, the COVID vaccination in pregnant and postpartum women. And yet, we are far short of the target. Today, about 15 lakh women, pregnant women in this country have accepted vaccination. And we know that we have almost 30 million who are pregnant every year. So the targets are very, very far away yet. And what is this vaccine hesitancy? How to go about it? And also to realize that we have a vaccine that requires time for the second dose and then another 2 to 4 weeks for antibodies. And we have to budget all that and not think that there is nothing happening right now. Why should I take the vaccine? So today we are going to take a deep dive into all of these situations, discuss our experiences, tackle our fears, and find a way to go forward. So thank you to all who have made this afternoon possible. And I will ask Dr. Garima to introduce Dr. Shanta Kumari, President of FOXI. Such a busy schedule. We really appreciate her taking time out to be here today.
Thank you, Dr. Batla. Now I would like to introduce our very own and a very loving person, our President FOXI, Dr. S. Shanta Kumari. Ma'am is an international figure in FIGO and WHO, and everybody knows ma'am and loves her so dearly. So apart from being the president of our organization, ma'am is treasurer FIGO and also a very busy obstetrician and gynecologist at Hyderabad. So over to you, ma'am, Dr. Shanta Kumari.
Thank you very much. I think I have to congratulate AIMS and WHO and all my OB-GYNs FOXians for actually taking up such an important aspect of women's health. Neeraj Batla, our dear FOXian, she's been the past chairperson of the FOXi committee and the FIGO committee. I think this particular aspect of COVID, that is COVID-19 vaccination in pregnancy and in postpartum women, is very, very important. Yeah, we agree with you that right now what the whole country is in a much better shape than before, with a decrease in the number of cases and all. But I think we shouldn't take it very easy. I think we should take it upon ourselves to see that all our pregnant women and the women in the postpartum period are vaccinated, so that in case if there is a sudden surge, which we definitely hope doesn't happen, we will make sure that they are covered. And I think that is the way forward to save our women, because we do understand the importance of vaccination in pregnancy. So I hope every one of us takes this lead. And I really appreciate WHO India, Dr. Pushpa Chowdhury, Dr. Priya, and the rest of the team and AIMS and all the FOXi members for coming forward to take up this wonderful initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shanta Kumari, for introducing such an important issue so succinctly and for conveying the urgency and need to act upon accelerating COVID-19 vaccination in pregnant and lactating women. Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to invite the chairpersons for this session. Dr. Abha Singh, thank you, ma'am, for joining us despite some problem at family emergencies. Dr. Mitra Saxena and Dr. Mandakini Pradhan, to please introduce our key speakers and take us deeper into the discussion and evidence at global and Indian level for COVID-19 vaccination in pregnancy and lactation. Dr. Abha Singh, ma'am, is also a chairperson for Medical Disorder Committee, and she's from New Delhi, and she's director professor at LHMC New Delhi. Dr. Mitra Saxena, she's, can we have the slides, please? Dr. Mitra Saxena, next, please. Ma'am is chairperson, Practical Obstetrics Committee, and she's senior consultant obstetrician and director, Shri Ashwini Saxena Hospital, Rewari. Welcome, madam. And Dr. Mandakini Pradhan. Ma'am is professor and head SGPGI-MS Lucknow, and she is chairperson in Genetics and Fetal Medicine Committee, FOXi. So now I hand over the session to our esteemed chairpersons to introduce our key speakers and take us deeper into the discussion and also evidence at global and Indian level for COVID-19 vaccination. Over to the chairpersons, and who will introduce our speakers one by one. So Dr. Abha Singh, ma'am, May please start with the first speaker.
Okay. At the onset, good evening, everybody. So at the onset, I'd like to thank Dr. Nirja Batla and the WHO team, Dr. Chaudhary, for giving this opportunity to the obstetricians to know about the vaccines. We have been demanding the vaccination for the pregnant women also, but there's a lot of, I think, fear among everybody that if we give it to the pregnant woman, what will happen to the fetus and what is going to happen to the mother. But we have seen that usually if the mother comes to us, she comes in a very late stage. And that is why it is, and it is
I think connection is lost. Dr. Garima?
Yeah, I think they are just looking into it.
I think Dr. Abha lost her connection. So we can go ahead, Dr. Garima.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so the past, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Mandakini, and in the first talk till the time that Dr. Abha joins back. Why COVID-19 vaccination in pregnancy? That's the ethos of this discussion. And I invite Dr. Nirja Batla, who is Professor Head of the Department AIMS, for speaking on it. And she is WHO CCR in AIMS New Delhi. Ma'am, we look forward for this discussion, and mostly you are the right person to address this topic. So I welcome Dr. Nirja to speak on this topic, and then over to you, ma'am, Dr. Nirja Batla.
Thank you. May I share my slides, please? Thank you very much, Dr. Mandakini, for your kind introduction. And now where is my, can you see my slides?
Yes, ma'am, we can see the slides.
So this has indeed been a tumultuous year that we have gone through as obstetricians. Even when there were lockdowns, even when nobody was able to work on their routine cases, the obstetricians never had time off and they had to attend to deliveries. And I think we have all seen what a difficult disease this can be. What is the rationale for vaccination now? If we look at the effect of COVID infection on the mother, we have seen that most of these women, more than 90%, will recover without need for hospitalization, but there will be some where there will be rapid deterioration and death. And the symptomatic pregnant women are the ones who appear to be at increased risk of severe disease and death. Compared with the pregnant women without COVID-19, those with symptomatic COVID were found to be at increased risk of admission to the ICU, iatrogenic preterm birth, preeclampsia-like symptoms, cesarean section, and death. Now, we've been saying for a long time, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And prevention of disease by vaccination is among the most successful interventions of modern medicine. But at the same time, requires great emphasis on safety and standards to ensure that benefits outweigh risk in a healthy population. And these are the criteria for introducing any vaccination anywhere. What is the magnitude of the problem? What is the safety of the vaccine? How are we going to measure immunogenicity? Do we have an antibody level that is a correlate of protection? And how effective is it going to be? Now, in the case of COVID-19 vaccine, you will be amazed to know that if we look at the global landscape, there are today about 287 total candidate vaccines, 103 in the clinical phase and 184 in the preclinical phase. So the ones which have really come to fruition already, we know the adenovector vaccines, which we have Covishield, the AstraZeneca Oxford, Janssen single dose vaccines, Sputnik and Sputnik Light. The inactivated vaccines, again, our Covaxin based on the strain which was been isolated from India, but similarly in Sinopharm and Sinovac are the strains isolated in China. The nucleic acid vaccines, which have been declared to be the most effective so far, the mRNAs, Pfizer, Moderna, and now our own DNA vaccine, ZyCoV-D, the first DNA vaccine in the world. So in India, these two have the predominance, the Covishield and Covaxin. Sputnik came in with a bang, but it got a little bit setback because WHO found problems in the licensure. Moderna has been licensed, still not come, and Janssen. And ZyCoV-D now for even use in adolescents is around the corner. So the vaccination, which began in the end of January and initially for the health workers only, quickly picked up in stages, and it was well accepted by a lot of people, but still the hesitancy issue was there. The risk of infection after 1 or 2 doses of Covaxin or Covishield was found to be 0.02 to 0.04%, which was an approximately 80% protection rate from infection. By 26th of August, 35% of the population had received at least 1 dose and 10% were fully vaccinated. And in fact, India then set a 1-day record, crossing 1 crore jabs. And it was seen that 99% coverage was there among health workers to have received at least 1 dose, and little more than 60% of the over 60 population was also covered by at least first dose. And today, if we look at the status, we have 18% who have been fully vaccinated. The side effects in general are not much: arm soreness, mild fever, tiredness, headache, muscle or joint aches, and syncope. But there are potential serious risks in a small number of people. In the case of Covishield, thrombosis with thrombocytopenia, possibly Guillain-Barré, and with the mRNA vaccines, myocarditis. Yet these risks are extremely small, and the benefits of the vaccine definitely outweigh them. Contraindications are very few: anaphylactic or allergic reaction to a previous dose, immediate or delayed onset anaphylaxis or allergic reaction to vaccines or injectable therapies, pharmaceutical products, food items, etc. And temporarily, for example, if there is a COVID infection, wait for 12 weeks from the infection or 4 to 8 weeks from recovery. Active symptoms of COVID-19, definitely wait. COVID-19 was treated with monoclonal antibodies or convalescent plasma, should delay. And if they are acutely unwell and hospitalized for any reason, not necessarily COVID, these are people should delay their vaccination. Now, if we look at any disease, we usually look at what is the effect of the disease on the mother and what is its effect on the fetus. Now, while as we said, the pregnancy and childbirth do not increase the risk, but they can worsen the clinical course compared with non-pregnant individuals of same sex and age, with almost 22% women being found to have preterm birth and 48% had cesarean delivery, and estimated rates of admission to ICU among pregnant women were higher than those of non-pregnant women. There was a higher risk for preeclampsia and eclampsia, 1.76 relative risk, and a more severe incidence of cardiopulmonary arrest in 3rd trimester, may be due to rapid multiplication of the virus in the respiratory system with already compromised mucociliary clearance mechanisms during pregnancy. But yes, more than 90% will recover. As far as the fetus is concerned, there is not much of vertical transmission. but there is approximately 2% of congenital infection reported, and there is a suggestion that antibodies could be protective to the fetus if they cross the placenta. In the case of the first wave, there was not much of risk seen for the mothers. The disease was relatively mild, and it was generally felt at that point last year that there was not too much data for vaccine safety, and there was not enough evidence that the benefit was going to outweigh the risk. But this second wave just blew everybody away with the number of cases and deaths. And if you look at data from Nair Hospital regarding COVID-19 infected mothers and their outcomes, you can see that while in the last year, the yellow is the number of admissions, and this is how it just came down by November, December, and rapidly peaked later. And the blue line is the mortalities, and you can see how few they were compared to what was seen in the second wave. And this is what was really, really alarming, to see the progression of this wave. So it was seen what is the available data on vaccination in pregnancy. mRNA vaccines had done the required direct animal reproductive toxicity studies and had had the trials with the approval. Covaxin being a killed virus vaccine, and our past experience with the inactivated showing that they were quite safe in pregnancy, and data was forthcoming on the adenovector vaccines from abroad. Although one problem that was being reported in the younger population was about the thrombosis thrombocytopenia syndrome, where the level of platelets is less than 150,000, with unusual sites being reported as compared to normal. However, a little saving grace that we don't have so much in India. The VSafe registry set up for voluntary reporting of outcomes for vaccination in pregnancy had reported good results after mRNA vaccination in the USA, and no specific safety signals were observed. And they looked at various pregnancy complications, including gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, eclampsia, IUGR, neonatal outcomes, preterm births, congenital anomalies, small for gestation age, neonatal death, and broadly did not find any increase over and above the background rate. These slides I have to thank Dr. Arora for sharing, which he got from UK, showed the modeling regarding the use of Covishield in the population depending upon the risk. So bear with me, it looks a little complicated, but it's not really. On the left, you see the potential benefits of ICU admissions due to COVID and the potential harms of specific blood clots associated with the vaccine in different scenarios. This is a scenario with a very low exposure risk, and it looks per 100,000 population in the different age groups. And you can see that in the reproductive age group, the potential benefit in terms of ICU admission is far less than the risk in their setting for the blood clotting risk. But as the exposure increases to a low exposure risk, this becomes a more balanced situation. And when it reaches a medium exposure risk, already the ICU admissions prevented by the vaccination far outweigh the potential risk of having a blood clotting outcome. And when you have a high exposure scenario, you can see that there is significant benefit based on the coronavirus incidence. This high exposure means of 20 per 10,000 per day. This is what was roughly UK at the peak, and it was more than that perhaps for us too. The initial assessment reported from India following Covishield and Covaxin link showed that there may be about 3.86 cases per million doses, possibly causally linked effects for Covishield, and 2.7 cases per million doses, which were related to Covaxin. And in general, these were not significant in terms of the TTS, but rather they were more of allergic reactions and anxiety-related actions that were seen. There were, after Covishield, 27 cases of potential thromboembolic events, which translated to 0.62 cases per million doses, which included 6 deaths, 19 hospitalizations for stroke, seizures, hemoptysis, and 1 severe, and none at all after Covaxin, no case of potential T. So it seemed that the benefits of vaccination in pregnancy and lactation, though it is not established firmly, is unlikely to pose a risk. The vaccine effectiveness is likely to be comparable to non-pregnant and will definitely reduce the risk of severe disease, preterm stillbirth, as well as transmission to vulnerable household members, with a potential protection of the newborn by passive antibody transfer. I've already mentioned about the Foxy position statement, which went a long way in reassuring ANTAGI that there would be enough obstetricians and gynecologists around the country to administer the COVID vaccines and to be prepared for managing the adverse events. So ANTAGI came out with the recommendation that we have a low risk for TTS within limitation of data. Exposure probability was very high at the time of the second particularly. And so while informing them about this, we can give them, but we must watch them for 30 minutes, etc., as we are doing. But definitely the pregnant women should not be excluded from vaccination. So my take-home message is that all healthcare workers should definitely be vaccinated. Pregnant women in any trimester, vaccination is also advised to the lactating women. Vaccination in children is around the corner now, and the overall benefits greatly outweigh the rare risks of specific adverse events. Only contraindication is severe or immediate allergic reactions to the vaccination or any of its components. So no waiting if you're 18. Thank you for the opportunity to share my talk with you today.
So thank you so much, Dr. Bartla, for your elaborate description of the impact of disease on pregnancy and the newborn and the benefits of various vaccines during pregnancy and lactation. Thank you, ma'am. Now, I request Dr. Mitra Saxena to invite our next speaker, Dr. Danish Ahmad.
At the very outset, I would like to say a very warm good evening to all those who are attending, and a heartfelt thanks to team of AIIMS, Dr. Neerja, Dr. Garima, and all of you for inviting us for this wonderful webinar. And I have the pleasure to introduce our second speaker, but before I do that, I would be failing in my duty if I will not compliment Dr. Neerja on her excellent, very, very clear-cut way of delivering the message. She simplifies all those dilemmas and all those confusions. And Indians are known to be confused. All the patients will have started doing a lot of net searching. So I think that is a very, very nice, short, precise take-home messages and everything. In addition to ki vaccination lagwaye ki na, they start asking you kaun si achhi hai, kaun si buri hai. So the confusions are so many, but the message of Dr. Neerja is so good that why COVID-19, and I think there is no doubt that jab mauka mile to karna chahiye. Now, let me introduce our second speaker, who is going to be speaking on the international scenarios. Dr. Danish Ahmad is the National Professional Officer Immunization for WHO India. So welcome to Dr. Danish. Let's see, he's going to apprise us about the scene of COVID-19 vaccination in the international arena in our country. Over to you, Dr. Danish.
Thank you, ma'am, Dr. Mitra Saxena. And thanks to Foxy colleagues for having this webinar, not only having this webinar, but also having a very, very strong position and advocacy with the Government of India for vaccination of COVID-19 vaccine among pregnant and lactating women, which has facilitated this decision of making the vaccine available to this particular group. I'll be sharing the global evidence and update on the vaccination. Before I move to COVID-19 vaccination, just to briefly explain you the WHO process of making the recommendation on immunization. So there is a body which called it as SAGE, or Strategic Advisory Group of Expert on Immunization, sits at WHO headquarters. It's a composed of international experts and independent review members, and they look after the evidences on immunization, not only on COVID, but across all aspects of the immunization program. So usually SAGE meets twice in a year. However, considering the emergency of COVID, it's almost meeting monthly since January 2021. There is a SAGE COVID-19 working group and a subgroup also. They are meeting twice to thrice in a week, almost alternate day sort of thing, so that decisions or support could be fast tracked. As of now, this SAGE finally comes up with the technical documents, and the COVID-19 technical documents which has been produced for this vaccination. It includes the specific documentation on 6 EULs, emergency use listing vaccines. So each of the 6 vaccines which has been emergency listed for emergency use by WHO, there is a detailed product paper on each of the 6. It includes the serum Covishield vaccine also. There is a guidance on policy making provided by SAGE. They also support with the further resources and also help countries on the prioritization criteria for vaccination, especially considering the limited supply of vaccine and special age groups for which the decisions are needed. We look at the risk of COVID-19 during pregnancy. So pregnancy as such does not increase the risk to COVID-19 infection. However, current evidence indicate that pregnant women are at increased risk of severe illness from COVID-19, and this has been seen across globe and also in India. The pregnant women with COVID-19 are at increased risk of preterm birth and might have an increased risk of adverse outcome, including the higher neonatal mortality. Additionally, pregnant women are more likely to require admission to ICU if they had the COVID. There are studies which are mentioned in my slide, and maybe detail may be referred if required. The background evidence on COVID-19 vaccines amongst pregnant and lactating women, we see that pregnant and lactating women are not included in the initial clinical trials for COVID-19 vaccines, and it's mainly because of the risk or the safety concerns. And same are the reasons for non-inclusion of the pediatric age group also in our initial clinical trial. However, there are studies which are underway, and I have mentioned some of the important studies in my slide. But the long-term safety data is not yet available. The available COVID-19 vaccines are not a live vaccine, most of the vaccines which are being used. So this is an important consideration for us while we are deciding on the vaccination of pregnant women. Data from animal studies and post-introduction surveillance, that is after the introduction of vaccine, the data from those post-introduction surveillance have not shown any harmful effect in the pregnancy. The vaccine effectiveness, which could be another concern for taking the decision, is expected or likely to be comparable as in the non-pregnant women age group. And initial immunogenicity data is same among pregnant and non-pregnant age group. So with such a situation, decision on the vaccination depends on mainly 3 factors. One is risk of COVID-19 in pregnancy, likely benefit of vaccination in the local epidemiological context, and limited safety data for pregnant women, which is available. And here was the role of FOXI and advocacy by FOXI and position paper of FOXI. In addition, if we see the WHO interim recommendations, which are there for each of the vaccine, so if we see that even for AstraZeneca, there is a separate position paper, and in the interim paper, WHO recommends the vaccination of pregnant women when benefits of the vaccination to the pregnant women outweigh the potential risk. For example, you can see that the pregnant women are at higher risk of exposure to COVID-19 when there is a higher caseload as we rightly have in our country also. Despite having passed through the second wave, still our risk is quite high. Pregnant women with comorbidities that place them at a higher risk group for the severe COVID-19 disease. And we have seen these evidences as shared by Dr. Neerja in the earlier presentation, and also by various studies, including the studies by ICMR in India. So WHO interim guidance says that it is not necessary to conduct pregnancy tests before vaccination, and there is also no need to delay or terminate pregnancy because of vaccination. So the vaccination can be provided with the line of these guidelines. If we see the global practices, what across country is being followed, the countries are following. So green are the countries which has recommended vaccination for all the age group. In 51 countries, it's permitted. These are in the blue color. Then there are countries where it's permitted with certain qualification. Those are in yellow color, and there are 23 such countries. 8 countries are recommending on certain conditions, exceptional basis. These are recommended. 31 countries are saying that the pregnant women vaccination are not recommended. And for 60 countries, we don't have the position as of now. If we see this, or if we track this position, it is changing quite frequently, fast. So when we were introducing the COVID-19 vaccine in the month of July, this 51 or green color were just, I think 13 or 14 countries were having. Since then, many countries have changed their positions, because as evidences are being made available, there is increased confidence on vaccination, and the doubts or the uncertainty over non-inclusion of pregnant women in the initial studies is now being taken care of. With regard to safety surveillance for the pregnant women, WHO COVID-19 vaccine safety surveillance manual is in place, and immunization program to establish surveillance of women who have been vaccinated either intentionally or inadvertently during the pregnancy and their infants. Both active and passive surveillance approach is recommended to assess adverse events following immunization, including during the pregnancy. As far as our scenario is concerned, in India, we have strengthened adverse events following immunization surveillance since the introduction of this vaccine. And as we moved for the vaccination of pregnant women, this was further heightened. Now we have all there are the adverse events reporting has been increased, or sensitization has been conducted to include all the maternal events which are not normal if takes place, such as abortion, preterm labors, IUGR. So all such events, if got known, they have to be reported as adverse events. Similarly, non-obstetrical conditions such as any anaphylaxis or allergic condition amongst the pregnant women who have taken this vaccine needs to be reported as adverse events following immunization. This also been expanded to include any anomaly or something which is not normal in newborn, such as any organo or congenital anomaly or anything which is otherwise not normal has to be included as adverse events. And for investigation and classification of all adverse events following immunization, the composition of AEFI committees has been revised at district as well as state level. And now we have obstetrician and gynecologist as a member of AEFI committee, so that these classifications are taking place and these are considered. The experience from India is that since we have introduced vaccine, as of now, as of today, as we speak, more than 18 million doses has already been administered. We are very close to 1 billion target, just a few inches are far from that target. The pregnant women vaccination was allowed in July 2021. And since then, more than 1.27 million doses has been administered safely. So this is the confidence that program is gaining because of decision by India. We don't have any such strong vaccination in any part of globe where so much doses has been provided safely among these pregnant women. So we hope that this will be way forward for other countries who have yet to take the decision. So to summarize, I would say that benefit of vaccination, protection from the severe COVID disease and the outcome overweighs the risk for vaccination in pregnant women. Countries that are vaccinating pregnant women have not seen any adverse effect to mother or newborn. And the data from India is quite bulky and with the large sample size. We need to continue watching the evolution of these evidences and wait for further evidences. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much. There are additional links which are available in this presentation and they can be looked as per the requirement. Over from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Danish. I think that was very nice. And it is so heartening to actually be at the forefront of something as important as vaccination and COVID-19. I'm really, really proud of our country and the way, I mean, like we have risen up and in our own small way, my own institution, we immunized 6,000 people. So I think every little drop counts and thank you so much. And the best part is that everybody is now actively contributing to convincing the vaccination for the right reason. I think there's no way out for all of us. Dr. Mandakini, please.
Yeah.
Take over.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad, for that wonderful talk. And at the outset, I must thank AIIMS and WHO partnership to bring this the discussion. And this is where we have already discussed. Dr. Nirja has nicely discussed about vaccination during pregnancy. And now we have listened how it is important and why we entered into this. And everybody has realized, as a gynecologist, all of us must realize ourselves that it is a must and should advise all our pregnant women during our antenatal visits to the hospital. But then let us move on to postpartum and lactation. And I invite Dr. Niranjan Chauhan, one of my friends in Foxy, to speak on that topic, that is vaccination, COVID vaccination during lactation and postpartum period. Dr. Niranjan is has got many publications and he is the currently professor unit chief in Sion Hospital. Has got a lot of, like, his biodata moves on to many many pages. So so I invite Dr. Niranjan to speak on this topic, which is very, very relevant in present day context. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mandakini Pradhan. At the outset, I would like to thank WHO, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, Professor and Head of the Department, Dr. Nirja Bhatla, Dr. Garima. She's also a Professor Associate in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. My esteemed President, Dr. Shanta Kumari, Madam, WHO office bearers, the chairpersons of today's webinar, which is very important topic, a trending topic of COVID-19 vaccination, Dr. Mitra Saxena, Dr. Pradhan, and all the esteemed panelists which are going to come after my lecture. I'm going to speak today. Already Dr. Danish has already spoken on vaccination in pregnancy, and it's very heartening to know that 918 million of pregnant women have been vaccinated up till now, and still we have a good robust data happening. So hope is always strong. You don't have to worry about what is wrong. Vaccine is near and we will make everything clear. As you are all aware, COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic emergency and the rest is history. India, we are facing presently the third wave, supposedly, and I hope it doesn't come. It has come in certain states, but we are still to be sure what is happening. the morbidity and the mortality rates have literally gone down, though the number of cases have increased in the second wave. But the best part is that more than 3 crores 37 lakhs cases have been confirmed, but we have vaccinated 87 crores and 7 lakhs and 8,636 doses have been given till 27 September. And that is a very good implementation by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, along with all the government and state and municipal hospitals. The largest single day record of vaccination was administered on Friday, 17th of September, where more than 2.3 crore doses were administered. So this is what India stands for, and we are really doing very good. Presently, I am speaking from Mumbai, where at Sion Hospital, we cater to the largest slum area of Asia, that is Dharavi. And we are still waiting for a third wave to come. But a study done by the microbiology department in our hospital says that 86% of members, they have done the fifth study, are having antibodies in their bloodstream. So that is quite a good thing which we are seeing. So from pandemic, we are moving towards endemic, but still it is a long way to go. There is no precise data presently at the global level, and Foxy is still to build a national registry, and we are working on that. Comparatively, non-pregnant women have been vaccinated more as compared to the pregnant women, and we need to have the small droplets in the of knowledge and vaccination so that it becomes a big ocean and we do not require any hospitalization. So vaccination is a definitive tool, and it is really slowed down or halted the pandemic to certain extent. So what is the rationale? It was started in March, May, June, July, and basically it will be helpful to reduce the risk of infection, reduce the morbidity and the mortality, the long-term effects of infection like pulmonary fibrosis or any other pregnancy issued problems, and it will also prevent the transmission. So we have to consider the level of activity, the potential efficacy of the vaccine, the safety, the risk, and the timing of vaccination during pregnancy and postpartum period. Briefly, I will go, which all the previous speakers have also gone. There are 4 types of vaccine which we are facing right now, which are available in India. The first one is a whole virus vaccine, and it needs a booster. That is a challenge in front of us. It can be produced by mass, and it's relatively simple to produce. And basically, it's a killed vaccine. The side effects are less, and it helps to induce a very good now India and Sputnik. And it is, however, a complex process involved, but it is really has done good wonders. And if a person is vaccinated, it will be very helpful that they do not land up with severe symptoms, and it is very, very good also for pregnant women. It might get transmitted to the fetus, but the results or any affection of side effects have still to be confirmed. The nucleic acid vaccine is Pfizer, Moderna, BioNTech. It basically is a mRNA isolated and replicated virus vaccine. It requires basically an ultra cold chain to be maintained, for which we need minus 18 to minus 80 degree centigrade of cold chain maintenance. That becomes little difficult in our Indian scenario. So to summarize, these are the vaccines which are available, and it has been now very well established. The FIGO statement which came in 2nd of March, that yes, it can surely be beneficial. However, no minimal or any potential risk of newborn has been seen. And for breastfeeding women, COVID-19 vaccine can be offered. So this was as 8 months before we started in India in July. This is the Foxy statement which also came on 25th of April, and we recommended that yes, it can be extended to the pregnant and breastfeeding women, and it has surely beneficial effects and a very remote risk of having some side effects. And hence, on 19th of May, by the Ministry of Health and the NH mission, that is a National Health Mission, they recommended that yes, it can be given in lactating women, and hence we are going ahead. RCOG also has the similar guidelines. Breastfeeding women can receive a COVID-19 vaccine, and there is no need to stop breastfeeding to have the vaccine. So any of your women who are coming here, they are pregnant, they are postpartum, surely all this references been, guidelines been given by the Ministry of Health, the Foxy and the FIGO, we can surely go ahead and recommend it. There are various studies I would like also to share. This study was done in American Journal on latest as September 1st, 2021, where they did a study of 131 women, 84 were pregnant, 31 were lactating, and 16 were non-pregnant. And this was done in 2 tertiary centers between December 2020 and February 2021. And they recorded the antibody titers, the baseline, and after second dose, they concluded that coronavirus disease 2019 messenger RNA vaccine is a very good, effective vaccine to be given, and it causes a robust humoral immunity in pregnant as well as lactating women. And it was statistically significantly greater than the response to natural infection. So this is the latest study which I would like to share with you, done by Catherine J. et al. Another study is by Jacosko, which was also published in 17th of June 2021, issue 6, vaccines, and the immune response is much more stronger, 7 plus or minus 3 days after the second dose, and it included 32 breastfeeding women, and they had a high level of IgA and IgG antibodies which were detected in the samples, serum samples of mother after the COVID-19 vaccine was given. Another study I want to present to you was in June in the New England Journal of Medicine, and here they took the study from December 14, 2020 to February 28, 2021. And 3,958 participants were taken into consideration. 827 had completed pregnancy, of which 115 resulted in pregnancy loss, and more than 86% resulted in live birth. Preliminary finding following vaccination was very good. It did not show any obvious safety signals amongst pregnant persons who received this injection. So these 3 studies are the landmark studies which are very efficiently telling us on these guidelines we follow. However, there are certain contraindications we need to understand. So if there is any anaphylactic reaction or allergic reaction to the previous dose, she should not be given in lactation. Temporarily, there are certain conditions. If the patient has got COVID-19 infection, you should defer the vaccine for at least 12 weeks from the infection, or 4 to 8 weeks following the recovery. And of course, if the patient has symptoms of COVID-19 infection, we are not supposed to give this vaccine. And COVID-19 infection treated with anti-COVID-19 monoclonal antibodies or plasma should be avoided to give this vaccine. Obviously, if the patient is hospitalized and unwell, we would not like to give. So besides this, there are direct medical benefits which have been found, and it will ease the enormous burden on the healthcare infrastructure. It will also allow the healthcare to be utilized for non-COVID-19 medical issues as a routine method. It will help us to regain our economic activity, which has gone down over the last 1.5 years, and it will take at least up to more 1.5 years to recover from the economic stagnation which we are having. And the studies have shown that various vaccines protection is 70 to 90%. So yes, if it is available, we should give it to our pregnant as well as lactating women. There should be no issue about it. These are my references from Ministry of Health, from various journals, RCOG, and I have shared with you the latest guidelines and journals papers. Thank you so much for a patient hearing, and please do not hesitate and let's vaccinate. That should be our goal and motto to our patients.
Oh, nice, Dr. Niranjan. That's very nice way of putting things together and sending this message that everybody should encourage women to take vaccination, whether pregnancy or lactation or postpartum, whenever we come in contact with such women. Thank you so much.
Thank
And over to you, Dr. Garima.
Thank you, our dear chairpersons, for sharing your insights, and our experts, Dr. Neerja Batla, Dr. Niranjan Chauhan, and Dr. Danish Ahmad from WHO for sharing with us the evidence on global and Indian level and current recommendations regarding the safety and efficacy of COVID-19 vaccination in pregnancy and lactation. So now, without wasting much time, let's move forward and take this inspiring discussion to understand the issues, challenges ahead, and also to burst some of the common myths and misconceptions around it. Now I would like to invite Dr. Vatsala Dadwan, who is professor at Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, to conduct a panel on addressing the issues regarding the misconceptions and lack of awareness of COVID-19 vaccination in pregnancy. And I hope that after this panel, we will be very knowledgeable. So now also before handing over to Dr. Vatsala Dadwan, I would like to request all our panelists to be very crisp and clear in their deliberations because we are running a little short of time. Over to you, Dr. Vatsala Dadwan.
Thank you, Dr. Garima. I'll just share my slides. So at the outset, I would like to thank WHO and WHO CCR AIMS, Dr. Neerja Batla, for giving me this opportunity to conduct this panel. And I would like to introduce my esteemed panelists. So I'll one by one introduce them. Dr. Pushpa Chaudhary Deo, she's a team leader on reproductive, maternal, newborn, child and adolescent health in WHO India. Dr. Manju Puri is Director Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology at Lady Hardinge Medical College, New Delhi. Dr. Shobha Goody is Professor and Head of the Department at St. Philomena Hospital, Bangalore. Dr. Sneha Buhar is Managing Director, Shukarta Hospital. And she's also Chairperson on the Study of Female Breast Committee at FOXI. Dr. Charmila Ayu is ICOG Governing Council Member and National Coordinator, UNICEF FOXI PCA. Dr. Anita Rajoria is Senior Consultant in Delhi in Department of Obs and Gynae at Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel Hospital. And Dr. Archana Kumari, Assistant Professor at AIMS New Delhi. I welcome you all for the panel. And so we would be talking about COVID-19 vaccination in pregnancy and lactation, myths and misconceptions. We know that the vaccine was introduced for emergency use authorization to combat this pandemic. Initially, it was it was not authorized to be used in pregnant women, but eventually the benefits for pregnant women were also realized and we started giving the vaccine to the pregnant women. But because of lack of enough safety data, and here when we talk about pregnancy, we have a pregnant woman and the fetus to look at, it is more of a worrisome situation. So there are a lot of questions, not only in the mind of the physicians, but also the general public. So in this panel, with the help of my esteemed panelists, we would like to answer those questions and give clear messages. So at the outset, we have here Dr. Pushpa Chaudhary from WHO. I would request Madam to tell us, give an overview, why do we need to push this vaccination in pregnant and lactating women?
Thank you so much, Dr. Vatsala. And I take this opportunity to extend warm greetings to all of you from WHO India. I think this question is very well answered and covered by all three presentations early on. And actually those presentations were excellent to provide an overview. So I would just try to simplify the message that I feel that our gynecologist colleague could communicate with other colleagues and other healthcare providers working with them, as well as to the clients. So why we need to push vaccination? Because we know that vaccine is one of the 5 crucial pillars to protect against COVID-19 infection. And this protection extends well to the pregnant woman also. Pregnancy access does not increase the risk of COVID infection, but pregnant women may rapidly develop severe disease, needing hospitalization and ICU admissions, higher incidence of comorbidities, preterm births, neonatal deaths, ICU admissions, and overall, increased maternal and neonatal mortality. Studies also indicate that pregnant women who are older, obese, hypertensive, or diabetic are a particular risk of adverse pregnancy outcome of COVID-19. So benefits of vaccination, as covered earlier on, will clearly reduce the severity of the disease and associated mortalities and prevent transmission to household members who could be their caregivers and as well as to healthcare providers. So according to WHO, there is insufficient evidence to believe that COVID vaccination in pregnancy carries specific risks and that outweighs benefits of protection against infection. As governments all over the world now have extended vaccination to young people, including Government of India, that is providing vaccination to 18 years plus, there is no reason that this huge cohort of over 30 million pregnant women are excluded from vaccination. We understand that data on safety is not enough, largely due to exclusion of these group of women in initial vaccine trials. But as we have more and more data now on pregnant women being vaccinated, initial reports clearly suggest that there are no safety concerns for both mothers and babies. So for the available COVID-19 vaccines, they are not live vaccines, and available data from animal studies have not shown harmful effects in pregnancy, though we know that long-term safety data is still awaited. And similarly, vaccine effectiveness is likely to be comparable to non-pregnant women, as initial immunogenicity data being similar. So there is enough evidence to advocate for this vaccination. And WHO strongly recommends informed choice for COVID vaccination in pregnancy, and it is duty of all healthcare providers, including specialists, to be equipped with knowledge and be competent to inform pregnant women, lactating mothers, and their families about vaccination against COVID to protect them. So we, WHO India, pushed very hard together with FOXI, IAP, NNF, and AIMS to the government bodies to agree to the recommendation of professional bodies, despite limited data on safety of vaccine. And I'm glad that Government of India operational guidelines for COVID vaccination in pregnancy is very, very comprehensive. And that gives clear guidance, how healthcare providers should counsel pregnant women and support them to decide for vaccination. However, we all know that despite these efforts, vaccine uptake in this group is very low, as we are getting more information from field. Vaccine hesitancy and vaccine equity are the two challenges we are facing, and we have to work very hard to address all these myths and misconceptions, including the myth that vaccination could cause COVID infection. So, though we also need more data and more information and strengthen our surveillance system for vaccination in pregnancy and lactation, that will further support vaccination in pregnancy. So I'm very optimistic that today's webinar will be catalytic in raising awareness and building capacity to support pregnant women for accepting vaccination. And I would also suggest that all our gynecologist colleagues should go through the operational guideline of Government of India, because that gives very clear, in simple language, the message that we healthcare providers should communicate with clients as well as, the frontline workers. So with these few words, I think there is enough reason to strongly push for vaccination. And, it's now a challenge of implementation. So I think with more and more data and information, more and more pregnant women will be vaccinated. So we have to just join together and, and raise more awareness among our gynecologist community and the healthcare workers who are working with us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You have set the stage for us to proceed with this panel discussion. And definitely awareness amongst doctors and the public is of utmost importance. So during the second wave of COVID pandemic, we've all seen these kind of case scenarios, a young mother being brought with severe respiratory distress, managed in the hospital, intubated, and then finally losing her a day or two later, which is very tragic and must have left a bad impression in all our minds. So I'd like to ask Dr. Manju, is this preventable? Could we have prevented the death of this mother?
Well, Vatsala, I don't know at that time it was preventable or not, but well, now let's understand that now that government is agreed and the vaccine has been opened up, I think it is the right time now that we can move on and do everything what is by which we are able to prevent a next wave coming and losing our young mothers. So I guess everyone needs to understand that the time interval between decision and protection, it is not that today I decide to get vaccinated, that I would be protected. So I think it is very important to focus on this fact that the time between decision to vaccinate and to be protected is approximately 2 months plus with Covaxin. So that means when you take your second dose, 15 days after that, that's the time when you get protected. So we don't know, there's so much of uncertainty with the third wave. We all thought second wave is not going to come, and we've seen how much traumatized it has left us. So I think there is no reason why we should hesitate in getting ourselves vaccinated. And it is not only for the pregnant woman herself. We all know that whenever these kind of pandemics come, it is the herd immunity finally, which helps in preventing all these mutants to come up and and stop the chain of transmission. So it is the mothers are supposed to, the women are supposed to protect themselves and also their families, and also in the larger interest of breaking this chain of transmission, that vaccination is what should be there in addition to the usual COVID appropriate behavior, which we would say. So that is what is my take on that.
Thank you, ma'am. I think in future, after we vaccinate our pregnant ladies, we are going to reduce deaths because of COVID-19, because in this data from UK, in the recent admission, 742 pregnant women who were admitted to the hospital with severe disease, 99% were unvaccinated. So we cannot really emphasize enough that vaccination is the need of the hour. So I think all the panelists would agree that all pregnant women should be offered COVID-19 vaccination after counseling. So all the healthcare providers at every level should talk to the pregnant women at the first contact. And it is very important, since we don't have enough data about safety and the adverse effects, they should be provided information about risk of COVID-19 infection versus benefits of vaccination with likely side effects, and let her make a choice and a decision for taking the vaccine. So I would like to ask Dr. Shobha, what about women with comorbidities? Because generally there's a concern, oh, I'm hypertensive, oh, I have some problem. Will it aggravate if I take the vaccine? So what is your message now?
Yeah, I think the message today is very clear, Vatsala, and that is that it's imperative that these women should be offered vaccination, because history tells us the disease is only 2-year-old now, and vaccination is 1-year-old. But whatever we have learned is a very, very kind of rich information, data and publications. I'm sure you also have assorted publication to support this, that women with comorbidities are at higher risk of severe disease, just like the non-pregnant population. And we saw that COVID-19 did not spare the obese, did not spare the diabetic. They always, so many of them went on to ventilators. I myself have seen many obese people succumbing to the disease. So it holds good for pregnancy that all these women who are categorized as high risk should be offered very diligently the vaccination. And if we have missed during pregnancy, it should be given during the lactation period. Having said that, I think it's also important to add a caveat here, and that is that vaccinations universally are recommended for people or for the population which is essentially well. They may be having chronic comorbidities, but they should be under controlled diseases.
So if we are looking at hyperglycemic situation, it should be a well-controlled diabetes. It should be kidney disease, which is, reasonably in remission. Similarly, autoimmune disorders, which are in remission, etc. So then in women who have well-controlled medical comorbidities are under good surveillance by physician, definitely as part of protocol, they should be offered. And it should be, as Dr. Pushpa and Dr. Manju very well brought out, and you also, that it should be well-informed decision made by the woman and her family. I think that should be the message, yes.
So this is a high-risk group which should be included in vaccination and not excluded.
Yes,
So
yes,
my
they
question-
should be included. They should not be the exclusion. They should be the inclusion, particularly. Yes.
Thank you. So again to Dr. Pushpa Chaudhary, madam, are there any contraindications to COVID-19 vaccine in pregnant and lactating mothers? Or are there
Well, as I said, in all three presentations, this question was very well answered. So just to, recap, yeah, pregnant women should avoid vaccination if there is a history of, anaphylactic or allergic reaction to previous COVID-19 vaccine or any other vaccine, including like injectable therapies or any drugs or food items. Temporary contraindication is like when a pregnant woman has COVID-19 infection. So we recommend that they should defer for vaccination for 12 weeks or 4 to 8 weeks after recovery. Or if they have got active infection, or if they are treated with anti-COVID-19 monoclonal antibodies or convalescent plasma. So they're very limited days for contraindications. Thank you.
So they're very limited contraindications and they're same as a non-pregnant condition. So Dr. Chamila, what is the experience with COVID-19 vaccine in pregnancy? Because the first question a woman is going to ask, what are the adverse effects I'm going to have because of the vaccination, and how is it going to affect my pregnancy? And the pregnancy outcome is specific to this group of population. So what would you like to say about this?
Thank you, Dr. Vatsala. Actually, we did a small case study for UNICEF when you are doing the FOXY UNICEF PCA project. And that I did a small case study in the government center, which is near to my hospital. So the vaccination, first it was rolled out in 20th June here. And then that was for the lactating women. And then they started for antenatal mothers on 9th of July. And there was a big population which had got vaccinated. And mainly the center saw only minor side effects. It was similar to the non-pregnant population. It was not different from the non-pregnant population. And it was the same, the arm soreness which you have when you take an injection, the mild body pain, headache, and sometimes very, very mild fever. And most of them were managed with paracetamol. That's what we could see there. And we could not see the major side effects, which was given in the fact sheet to all the centers, because it was quite a robust program in Tamil Nadu and it was going on so well. So the major side effects, any adverse effects, they were supposed to inform the local hospital, that is the government hospital, as well as an ambulance was kept ready in every vaccination center here. And the side effects which was mentioned in the fact sheet, like shortness of breath, chest pain, like a thromboembolic manifestation or thrombocytopenia, none of that they could see in that. And I think that was brought about by that study in NAGM also, the biggest study by Dr. Tom. We have taken almost 35,691 participants, and they had almost 3,900 pregnant ladies there. And in this thing also, you said somewhere around 800 pregnant, who had finished pregnancy were also there. So they could not find major side effects. It was almost similar to the non-pregnant population when the minor side effects were also taken into account. And regarding the fetal outcome, it was not different from the other population which did not have the vaccine. It was similar. There was no increase in either a small baby or a big baby being born, or a spontaneous abortion, a miscarriage, or a preterm delivery, or a SGA baby. All that was similar to as in a non-pregnant, as in other problems also. It was not more when there were COVID vaccinations were taken. And that I think was a very big study, and it brought out very clearly that the maternal effects as well as the fetal effects of this vaccine is not something which should make us avoid the vaccine. It is needed to prevent, as all the other speakers said, to prevent the major disease that the mother will have if she suffers from COVID disease.
Thank you, Dr. Chamila. So we know that the mothers are going to have side effects which are common, which a non-pregnant women will also have. And these side effects are not going to adversely affect a pregnancy. So counseling is very important. And if they have concerns, they should have the opportunity to call their care provider for discussion. But again, long-term effects of the vaccine on fetus and child are not known. And it is very important that we continue the surveillance for adverse effects as we're doing for other population in the pregnant woman also, for any effects on the woman or her pregnancy or on the fetus also. And maybe soon we'll have more data of safety.
Can I add something, Dr. Vatsal?
Yes.
Can I add some? Yeah, in this center, actually, there was some vaccine hesitancy when it started, but with persistent counseling effects, they were able to overcome that. And they were achieving actually a good amount of vaccination in pregnant women.
So that is very important, counseling and information, giving the correct information. Thank you. So again, like the concerns when we say, okay, the vaccine can be given in any trimester, but a woman may come who's in the early pregnancy, like say 7, 8, 9 weeks, and she would be hesitant because they know that this is a period of organogenesis and the doctors always say avoid medications during this time. It can affect your baby. So Dr. Charmila, how would you sort of counsel these women who are hesitant about taking the vaccine in the first trimester?
Madam, actually, I have an IVF center. In the first wave, we were extremely reluctant to do any procedures because of this disease. But after the second wave, after the vaccination, we are doing lots of IVF cases also now. And there is no teratogenic effect. That's what we're seeing, because mothers who became pregnant during the COVID disease, when the pandemic was raging on, even then we did not see any teratogenic effect in the babies who are born now, because when they had 9 months before and they're delivering now, we are seeing them with COVID disease. When the mother had COVID disease, we do not see any problem. And I don't think there's any teratogenic effect when you take the vaccine during pregnancy, and that we are seeing it also.
So there is limited data of exposure to the vaccine in the first trimester of pregnancy, and it has not been reported that it increases teratogenicity. But we have data from animal studies to show that it does not affect the reproductive and the embryogenesis.
And the British Fertility Society is very clear that you can go ahead with IVF procedure after taking the vaccine. It does not affect, except that when you have a fever or something during the vaccine, and be very difficult to do an home pickup at that time. So it's better to just schedule your vaccination depending on the procedure the patient is going to undergo.
Right. Thank you so much. So another concern is like the vaccine, can it cause infection to the mother or the baby? Dr. Manju, would you like to bust this myth?
Let's understand that, the vaccine which we are administering is not a live attenuated vaccine or live vaccine. So it is either we have an inactivated killed vaccine, which is with Covaxin, or you have a, spike protein, which is mounted on adenovirus, which is a platform which is commonly used for influenza vaccine as well. So there is no reason why, there would be infection to the mother and so also to the fetus. So basically the aim is to, generate immunogenicity towards the spike protein when we are talking about the Covishield, and towards the virus, when we are talking about Covaxin. So because there is nothing which is live and which can multiply in the body, and can cause infection. So there is no reason to be worried about that, COVID vaccine can cause infection either to the mother or to the baby. On the contrary, if a mother is vaccinated, there is a possibility that the antibodies from the mother can get transmitted to the baby, and there have been studies which have shown that, and might give protection to the baby after birth. So that would be an added advantage. And there is no reason why we should say, because it is against a specific spike protein. So it is it is not likely, it is not going to give infection to the mother or to the baby. We should be very, very clear about it.
Right. Thank you. So is it as effective in pregnancy as in the non-pregnant? Because some people may have concern, pregnancy being a state where you may have a little immunosuppression. So does the body mount equally good antibody response? And giving vaccine in pregnancy, does it benefit the baby also? Dr. Shobha. Ma'am, you're muted.
I think we should feel very, very positive about vaccinating women, because so far studies have shown that there is a robust immune response to the vaccination to the mother. And actually, there are good concentrations of antibodies, built up in the umbilical cord as well. And whichever the trimester the woman was vaccinated. So I think the cord blood and the breast milk also having a good amount of protective antibodies. This is, giving vaccination stands to logic. I don't think there should be any thought against it. That is how what it looks like to me today. It stands to logic from every which way. And I think women and families should accept, and they should move forward. There is good protection, and of course the overall efficacy of vaccination still remains to be tested, but that is universally applicable, not just for the pregnant and lactation women. So it is important to feel convinced that they will protect. There is no reason to believe otherwise. So it's better to feel that it is the same protection and one should move forward. Yeah,
I think that's the correct message. Thank you. And studies have shown that the antibodies in non-pregnant, pregnant, and lactating women are of the same. I mean, they're similar, and they're much higher than the antibodies acquired after natural infection. So definitely, it produces a good immune response. Dr. Sneha, there are a lot of concerns when the woman is lactating and you're trying to motivate them or you're counseling them for the vaccine. They're worried about their lactation, the milk production, and the effect on the baby, because the baby, and they worry about whether the vaccine can go into the breast milk. So would you please throw some light on this?
Yes, a very good afternoon to everyone, and thanks for the invite. At the outset, I would just like to comment upon the pregnant and the lactating status. I would just say that, as it is an immune compromised state, and by virtue of the physiological adaptive changes, pregnancy and lactation, these are the conditions where the women are at a higher risk of susceptibility to the infection, as well as higher morbidity as well. So on one hand, you have higher susceptibility, and on the other hand, you have higher protection. So naturally, we have to prefer the higher protection. And yes, the lactating women, they are benefited by this vaccination. Just now, Dr. Shobha has already mentioned, so I just repeat the same thing, that it has been found that in the umbilical cord as well as breast milk, the antibodies are they are detected. So it's not only the mother is protected from this, but even the fetus inside and the neonate who is feeding on the mother's breast, both of them, they are protected at both the stages rather. So you have, by all this discussion, what I mean to say is the benefits outweigh the risk, which are just theoretical and quite remote. So definitely lactating mothers are benefited, and they have to be included in the COVID vaccination. Thank you.
And don't to discontinue breastfeeding, and it does not affect
Definitely not. Yes, you have to continue. There is no necessity to discontinue breastfeeding at any point of time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So coming, Dr. Archana, we have our indigenously developed vaccines, but we usually have a tendency to say whatever has been made in the country is not good. So I don't know, like some people would say, let's wait for the imported vaccine to come. So what do you like? What is your thought about the different vaccines which are commonly being used?
Good evening, ma'am, and good evening, everyone over here. So currently in India, we are having two vaccines, the Covaxin, which has been developed by the Bharat Biotech in association with the ICMR, and it's an inactivated viral vaccine, and the Covishield, which has been developed by the Serum Institute of India, and it's a recombinant viral vector vaccine. Now, both of them have good efficacy, and the rate of infection after the second dose is comparable, and it's very low, 0.03% to 0.04%. In fact, the efficacy of Covaxin is as high as 81% after the third phase of clinical trial. So any of the two vaccines can be taken during pregnancy, and even the background little risk of thrombosis with Covishield is extremely rare, and it doesn't seem to increase in pregnant women. So any of the two vaccines which is locally available can be taken during pregnancy and even in the lactation. Now it does seem very flowery that the Pfizer and the Moderna have efficacy as high as 94 and 95%, but I don't think it's prudent to wait for the imported vaccines for the pregnant and the lactating women, because before the positivity rate currently is very low, and if during the active pandemic even going to the vaccination center increases the risk of exposure. So it is best that we get vaccinated with whatever is available with us. And also, if we get vaccinated earlier, it will be helpful for us to achieve the required herd immunity, so that we'll be able to ready ourselves for the coming third wave if it's ever going to come. Thank you, ma'am.
So let's hope the third wave doesn't come, and this is the best time to get our women vaccinated and get herd immunity, so that the third wave is more like an endemic than a pandemic situation.
Yeah.
So Dr. Anita, here we have a lady who has had history of COVID infection few months before pregnancy, and she's pregnant now. So she wants to know like whether she needs to take the vaccine because she already has antibodies in the system. So how would you counsel her?
Oh, thank you, organizers, for involving me in this great panel. As she has already suffered infection, and it was already highlighted by Sir in his lecture, that any person, they need to wait for at least 12 weeks after acquiring the infection, or at least 8 weeks after the recovery, complete recovery. So she can very well wait, because she has already suffered. And then if time allows, then maybe if there is a lapse of 12 weeks or 4 months, then maybe she can consider vaccination later on. But at present, if she is not able to get vaccination during pregnancy, then she can get vaccination immediately after delivery while she's in hospital.
So natural infection does produce immune response, but it eventually wanes. So taking a vaccine is going to boost the immune response. So they should take the vaccine 12 weeks after when they acquire the infection. And also if she gets infection during pregnancy, she should take the vaccine in the postpartum period, because again, it's going to boost her immunity. So Dr. Sneha, another question, like initially we were saying and also the concern of women, whether we should be giving COVID vaccine together with the tetanus or the TB vaccine that the women are taking. Because if you're going to give them at separate times, they have to make extra visit to the health center, again, the risk of exposure.
Yes.
So what is the current
definitely. Yeah. Basically, both the vaccines, what we are using, Covaxin and Covishield, they are the inactive vaccine. We are not using any live vaccine. And absolutely, there is no need for spacing these vaccines. We can give it simultaneously. Even if we are talking about tetanus toxoid, TD or Tdap, we can definitely give it along with Covaxin. May it be even within few weeks or even simultaneously. Even if you want to give anti-D immunoglobulin, we can definitely give it, as we have already said that there is no interference with the immune response whatsoever. So there is no need for spacing or planning a separate visit for the same, and you can definitely give it simultaneously. Thank you.
So moving forward, Dr. Anita, what is the best time to vaccinate in pregnancy?
So she can get vaccination at any stage of pregnancy. There is no contraindication, as we have already discussed, that the patients who are going for IVF or planning pregnancy, there is no contraindication to get vaccination. So whenever and wherever she gets the opportunity, she should get vaccinated. And ideally, she should have completed the vaccination by the time she enters third trimester. But if by any chance she is not able to do, at least she should get 2 doses as and when it is possible for her, because it will be good for her as well as her newborn baby.
Right, and if she's taking Covishield, then you have to space this for at least 12 to 16 weeks. So it's better to start earlier in pregnancy, so that by the time she's in third trimester, she's got both her dose, because she's fully immunized and protected 2 weeks after her second dose. So, Dr. Archana, I mean, this question has been partly answered. Should pregnancy be delayed after COVID-19 vaccination, or there is no problem? I think this has been answered again. I think that you can again answer.
This has been answered by ma'am. Pregnancy should not be delayed at all after COVID-19 vaccination. In fact, if a lady comes to know that she was pregnant at the time of vaccination, then she should not. She can easily go for her second dose after the requisite interval. In fact, the guidelines say that any woman who is planning or trying to get pregnant, they should be vaccinated against COVID-19, and that holds true even for those women who are trying to achieve conception through IVF treatment.
True. So it's not a that is not a contraindication, and you don't need to do a urine pregnancy test to confirm diagnose or rule out pregnancy before giving the vaccine. And given in the first trimester is not an indication for MTP. It's not going to harm, and she should take her second dose as and when it is required. So so after vaccination, I mean, people are usually overconfident that they have been vaccinated, they can move around, they needn't follow the COVID appropriate behavior. So Dr. Sneha, can breakthrough infection occur after vaccination? And if people get infected, I mean, are they likely to sort of be spreaders?
Even when you are fully vaccinated, yes, definitely we can get the infection. But the bottom line is we get a milder disease or milder clinical presentation of this disease. We do not have to face higher morbidity. We may not need hospitalization. Yes, but we can, rather we are susceptible to infection, but to a milder extent. And even when you are infected and asymptomatic, transmission does occur. So definitely when you are, even when you are asymptomatic, you can transmit the disease to others. So vaccination protects you from a severe disease. It protects you from a higher morbidity and mortality, but you can get a milder infection or milder manifestation of the disease.
So it's important to wear mask if you're in crowded places, even if you're vaccinated.
Even when you are fully vaccinated, you have to follow all the COVID protocol, and you have to follow all the safety measures, including the respiratory hygiene, hand hygiene, wearing mask all the time, protective mask, washing your hands and sanitizing it. Definitely you have to follow the COVID protocol if you want to protect yourself and the community as well. As healthcare provider, we have the dual responsibility to protect ourselves and also to spread, avoid spreading the disease to others. So we have to protect ourselves and protect the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So there has been talk about a booster dose, because we know that even after 2 doses of the vaccine, the antibodies or the efficacy decreases. So what is the recent view on booster dose for COVID-19 vaccine?
Yeah, so Vatsala, actually now it has been noticed that the immunity does kind of, it weans off. And for messenger RNA vaccine, Moderna and Pfizer, they have recommended a booster after 6 months. But then, we have to balance between the receiving of vaccine by the whole population as such, or giving a booster to those who are already vaccinated. So I think in India, given the numbers, I think it is right now we do not have any, advisory as far as a booster is concerned. I think for us, the primary aim should be to give vaccination to as many people as possible. That is the only way that we can kind of, protect ourselves and protect others from, getting infection and have more mutants coming, because the worry is that in case more mutants come, they might escape the, vaccine protection. So then it would be a bigger problem. So I think right now, rapid immunization of everyone, whosoever is, eligible for vaccination, is what should be the mantra. And of course, our pregnant women do come into that. So that is what we should aim at. And I think the obstetricians should themselves be convinced about it. they should understand how important it is, because it is not only your verbal communication, it is your non-verbal cues also which the patient takes. So for us, it is a hugely responsible role which we have to play, that we really need to be very clear in our own minds as to it has to be vaccine for all. So at any time, any vaccine, whichever comes your way, I think we need to ask our women to take it. So that should be our approach.
Thank you. I think we have some time left. So before we wind up, I mean, anyone of the panelists wants to give any message?
Yes. Dr. Vatsala, I just wanted to finish up with what I was saying, that as healthcare worker or as healthcare providers, we have a dual responsibility to protect ourselves and to protect the community. So the attitude of the healthcare workers towards the vaccine is very, very important. So we have to provide adequate and appropriate information to the public, and at the same time we have to avoid the misconceptions which are related to the vaccines. Recently, I think we all are aware that on one hand you have the re-emergence of the vaccine preventable diseases like mumps, measles, and on the other hand you have the anti-vaccine strategy, some of the people which they are they are having this vaccine hesitancy. So the vaccine coverage is getting lesser and lesser when in fact it should be improved. So we as healthcare provider has a very crucial role as far as the vaccination is concerned. So we have to have the positive attitude towards this vaccination drive, and we have to spread the proper information, knowledge to the public, and we come forward with a positive attitude. We get vaccinated first, and we share our our experiences with the public. And I think that should be in a bigger way to go ahead with the vaccination, as all of us know, or all of us will agree that, in fact, along with the COVID protocol, vaccination is the only way forward when we want to go ahead, rather we want to protect ourselves or come out of this pandemic of COVID-19. Thank you so much. Thank you once
Dr.
again.
Vatsala, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I'll like to ask either Dr. Neerja ma'am or Dr. Manju ma'am to respond to me, because newspapers are now full with Zydus vaccine. So what is the opinion of my esteemed faculty regarding administration of this new coming vaccine, because it involves 3 doses, and actually there is no data about pregnancy administration. So what is your opinion, Manju ma'am and Neerja ma'am?
So basically, Anita, I think for public in general, when we talk about from public health point of view, we should be very sure as to there should be no confusion as far as our messages to the general public is concerned. So right now, the vaccines where we have the data, when we started giving Covaxin and Covishield to pregnant women, we did not have data on that also. So right now, whichever vaccine is available, whichever vaccine comes the way of patient, it should be, encouraged. We should not create that kind of confusion in their mind, because once we create that confusion for one vaccine, it would get transmitted for other vaccines also. So our body language, our messages should be absolutely crystal clear, and there should be no confusion at any time. And at the same time, the government is, working intensely on collecting the adverse event, follow-up and reactions. So I congratulate Team AIIMS and WHO to have taken it in such a big way. So I think we really need to keep all the obstetricians and the general public also updated on whatever is added on and whatever is collected. I think that is what is going to take us forward. That is my take on it.
Okay.
Dr.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for that clarification.
There are 2-3 questions which are pertaining to how soon can we give COVID vaccine after giving tetanus toxoid in pregnancy. So I think this has been already answered very clearly by Dr. Sneha. You can give both the vaccines together the same day. It does not interfere with the immunogenicity. Another question is, could vaccine in first trimester, could COVID vaccine in first trimester, is it safe? So till now, whatever data we have, it can be given. It is not a teratogenic vaccine. And ARV vaccinations and COVID vaccinations.
Can I make a comment regarding Dr. Anita Rajoria's question?
Yes, ma'am.
So I completely agree with Dr. Manju that we must give very clear messages, and this is a very promising new vaccine. There's no reason to believe that we will have any problem, but we have to wait until we have the license from the ministry, of course, once again. And we have to be sure that the supply chains are not going to be broken, because it's a 3-dose vaccine. And we have seen even with Covishield and Covaxin that they come in slots with labels. Like we do have Covishield today, but this is for first dose, so you can't get your second dose today. So we have to sort of recognize the limitations of the supply chain also. And in due course, I'm sure it will be possible. But then, you know, again, a 3-dose versus a 2-dose, we have to see the relative merits. I think right now this vaccine is very, very promising for adolescents, because it is showing very good results for the under 18 age group, but that is possibly where we don't have licensure for the other vaccines. So it may first find, so time will tell where exactly it slots in.
Regarding the rabies vaccine, both can be taken at the same time. There's no contraindication.
Another question is, if patient has a history of DVT or thrombophilia, any preference? So you, the panelists, would like to answer.
In thrombophilia, basically, there is no difference. One can always go ahead. Whereas in DVT, you know, you have that debate of having Covaxin better than Covishield. So that is what are the UK guidelines. So maybe I think one can share that. So
ma'am, in Tamil Nadu, it's like a diabetic anemic patient or a hypertensive patient, they prefer Covaxin to Covishield. So probably there's some justification in giving for a person with thrombotic tendency Covaxin compared to Covishield.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether there's any such guidance from government. I think from our government, we do not have any such guidance.
But the state government has given here clearly, ma'am. So they give it like that.
Yeah, I personally feel that whatever guidance has the government has given, we follow that in spirit and in paper, everything, because only that's the way to go forward. The moment any confusion comes anywhere, you can have immense, you know, escalation as far as vaccine hesitancy is concerned. So we need to be very, very careful. Yeah.
But the UK guidelines say that for pregnant patients, they preferably give Moderna or Pfizer.
Yeah.
Unless they've taken one shot of Covishield and give the second shot.
So in our setting, it may be Covaxin, but well, we do not have any clear guidance as far as this is concerned. Sure.
They are not giving any reference, ma'am. They're just saying like, give it like that. So that's what the center was following where I went.
Yeah. True.
So I think we have already had a very interesting and very productive discussion, and most of the points have been covered very well. So I think we can sort of conclude the panel. So,
thank you, Dr.
Sherry, can I request Ma'am Dr. Neerja if she would like to say something before we conclude?
Thank you, Dr. Vatsala. Just one point from my side. I would urge FOXI to take it as a campaign as the festives are coming up, you know, so this is very right time to do something special, and Dr. Shanta is very good in doing that. So, you know, this will be one of next step from our side, and we are very happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much to everyone for a very good and in-depth session on the various aspects of vaccination. I hope it will go a long way to reduce the vaccine hesitancy, and I think the greater confidence will come as we feedback about our experiences with vaccination, so that the government is also encouraged, because I think the biggest next step is going to be bringing the vaccination into the prenatal clinics. And once that can be done, it will really facilitate uptake. Right now, this going into the COVID each time and, you know, registering over there is proving to be a little bit of a hassle. But I think if we look at the pictures and we see how the health workers are going to the remotest areas of the mountainous terrains and they are crossing the rivers and they're doing all kinds of that to see that people get, and there have been vaccinations at home for seniors in many countries abroad. So I think the time is now right where we have to start this discussion, and Foxy is best positioned to do it. So with Dr. Pushpa Chaudhary at the helm, Dr. Shanta, I hope that we can find Maharashtra did try to do this and to put the antenatal clinics in charge of the vaccination. But I think there was a little bit of ambiguity in the message given by the counselors. Undoubtedly, it is not intent, but not recognizing the safety of the vaccine and the reassurance it provides, and our contribution to prevent development of mutant strains when it comes around again. So many reasons why we must all be very positive and use every opportunity to encourage vaccination of the pregnant women and their caregivers as well. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for your insights. And thank you, Dr. Vatsala, all the panelists for such a stimulating panel, taking the various misconceptions, creating the right awareness regarding the safety and efficacy of COVID-19. Now, taking this session.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Webinar to a constructive conclusion. Summarizing the key takeaways, I would like to invite Dr. Raj, who is National Officer, Dr. Raj has been the key person behind the organization of this session from WHO. Now, I kindly request you to share your concluding remarks and give vote of thanks to a huge team of working at the back end that made this session a success. Over to you, Dr. Chahar.
Thank you so much, Dr. Garima. It gives me a great pleasure to be part of the webinar today and listen to all the esteemed clinical and public health perspectives from the panelists. Again and again, it was highlighted that there is a need to amplify the message for ensuring the vaccination of against COVID-19 for pregnant women and the lactating mothers as well. And, I hope that the session today would play a crucial role in ensuring vaccine equity and coverage, thus protecting our high-risk groups against any future surge. It was very enlightening to see that the webinar has thrown light on the different challenges and emerging trends in the vaccination in the country. And we also heard from the experiences of the different esteemed panelists in addressing vaccine hesitancy and the clinical evidences that we are seeing in terms of improving the coverage. And I'm sure that we have been able to provide through this webinar an opportunity for cross-learning and experience sharing for all the clinicians, as well as to all the panelists and all the attendees in the sessions today. My sincere gratitude and respect for all the distinguished speakers, chairpersons, panelists, and clinicians who took their time out from their busy schedules to be with us and share their valuable perspectives. Ma'am, we are privileged to have Dr. Neerja Batla today with us. Her commitment towards improving women's health and support that she has provided has been vital in making today's program a success that we are all seeing. From the WHO office, we are privileged to have Dr. Pushpa Chaudhary ma'am with us. Her presence and engagement in the entire series of webinars that we are hosting through the WHO country office is a reflective of our commitment towards improving maternal, newborn, and reproductive health outcomes in the country. Dr. Shanta Kumari ma'am, President Foxy, thank you so much for your valuable thoughts and guidance. Your contribution has been valuable in the area of women's health, and we look forward to having more positive collaboration and engagements in the year to come. It is my immense pleasure to thank Dr. Ahava Singh, AIIMS New Delhi, Dr. Mitra Saxena ma'am from Rewari, and Dr. Mandakini ma'am from Lucknow, who shared their insights as chairpersons in the event. I also take this opportunity to express my gratitude to Dr. Danish Ahmed, WHO Country Office, and Dr. Niranjan Chauhan for sharing their current evidence brief and thoughts on the different dimensions for the COVID-19 vaccination strategy in the country. This was indeed a timely panel and relevant, and I'm sure that it will enable us all to pave the way towards achieving 100% vaccination coverage for the high-risk segment of the population. My sincere gratitude also goes out to all the panelists, and it was really enlightening to hear them having a very communicative and very good discussions, rich discussions about their in-depth experiences and expertise. And we tried to make it as live as possible in terms of sharing also what the different Q&As were coming up through the participants. I would like to thank Dr. Vasla Dadwal, AIIMS New Delhi, who was today's moderator for the panel discussion. Thank you, Dr. Dadwal, for taking time out from your busy schedule and accepting the request for hosting the session. My humble thank you to all the esteemed panelists, Dr. Manjupuri ma'am from New Delhi, Dr. Shobha Gudi, Dr. Sneha, Dr. Chamila, Dr. Anita, and Dr. Archana. Thank you so much, Dr. Garima Kachava, for your continued support in organizing the webinar and all the discussions that we had over the last week and even before that. It is my pleasure to express sincere gratitude to colleagues in the WHO Country Office India, at AIIMS, and also the WGH India team, who have done an incredible job in weaving together the entire webinar series. An event of this scale becomes possible due to the earnest work of the teams who work behind the scenes. Thank you to each one of you for organizing this successful event. I really hope that each one of you will join us in the incredible journey that we are taking forward in creating more positive experiences for our pregnant and lactating women in our hospitals. And we will also keep you posted our next technical briefings that we will organize very shortly. Thank you and have a wonderful evening. Over to you, Dr. Garima.
You're muted, Garima.